Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Joy of Sticks. Stickhead here with your Atari ST gaming channel. Now I'm sorry about the brief hiatus there, but things got a bit hectic at uni and I haven't had much time to make videos for YouTube, but let's see if we can make up for that in the next couple of weeks, shall we? Yeah, so we're back and we've got a brand new intro. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. Some fantastic music there. A guy called MIDI Error emailed me not so long ago, or direct messaged me on Twitter, I think it was, and asked me if I wanted to use his tune as a theme tune. He said he had it knocking around on SoundCloud and on his hard disk for a few years, and it's not really doing much, and asked me if I wanted to have it. And I mean, as you can tell, it's a cracking tune, so I'm really pleased to have that on the channel. He said it's a modern tune that's trying to relive that kind of chip tune feel, so I think it's fantastic. Really, really excited to have that on the channel. I'll put a little link down below so you can check out his SoundCloud and listen to some more of his stuff. Anyway, this is a response to a video from TRexSpaceStation, who in turn was responding to my video when I asked, why do you play old games? That was a question I was asking because I really wasn't sure myself, so I wanted to gauge your responses to try and help me get a better understanding of why I choose to play old games over more modern games. But the main reason why he likes to play old games, or he was suggesting that one of the major reasons, was that in the old days it was more about substance over style, in that he was suggesting that maybe more modern games are graphically amazing but perhaps don't have the same intriguing underbelly as our old games. And I'm keen, while I am keen to avoid those rose-tinted spectacles, because I mean, let's face it, plenty of old games fell into the same trap where they had so much time and money and energy spent on making them look amazing, but when you got down to the actual gameplay, there was very little there. I mean, what am I thinking? Things like Rise of the Robots, oh my word. Things like, if we go back, the ST perspective, things like Wolfchild, that, you know, you take a screenshot, it looks amazing, but the actual gameplay is sadly lacking. Things like Zool, that looks great, but it's just a bad game. I mean, you might disagree with me on that, but there have been plenty of games in the past, you know, in every single generation, where the graphics are top notch, but there's just no gameplay. So he was suggesting that as retro gamers, we've overcome the urge for the shiny. And when I'll quote him here, he said, "We're not put off by things that look dated." And, you know, absolutely, we're not striving for the latest hardware, pushing the most polygons and bump mapped shading and stuff like that, because, you know what I mean, we're more than happy with monochromatic sprites if that's what the game calls for. So yeah, so that got me thinking, and I wanted to respond to him because he asked, what games do you think were graphically basic but were still excellent games? So I thought I'd come at this from an Atari ST point of view, and I'm stressing that word graphically basic, not graphically terrible, not games that look awful, because for the vast majority of the time, if the game looked awful, then it was just plain awful in every regard. Crazy Cars, I'm looking at you. Oh my god, my eyes. Oh, the goggles, they do nothing. I mean, look at it. Oh, it's just so bad. It looks awful, it plays awful, and there are loads, hundreds of games like that in the ST back catalogue that look like turd, smell like turd, play like turd. Just not worth your time at all. So instead, looking at his original question, games that are graphically basic, one that sprung to mind straight away was this little beauty right here. And this displays that point brilliantly. It's not bad looking by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's just delicious in its elegant minimalistic style. But at the time when it was released, it actually didn't score that highly. I've seen reviews around the 60s, 65%, and things like that. And it's basically because I think, if you can forgive me for being so bold, games journalists at the time were a bit snobbish about 8-bit. They'd moved on to 16-bit and they were expecting big, bold, brash sprites with lots of animation and lots of colour, and games like this I think fell by the wayside a little bit because, OIDs, the sprites are tiny, there's not a lot of colour on the screen, it still looks a bit 8-bit really, but as far as I'm concerned it looks gorgeous and it's one of the best games ever made. So to overlook it for not having those typically 16-bit graphics, I thought is criminal. So there you go, there's a game that's graphically basic but is absolutely brilliant. And in the same kind of regard, if we look at IK Plus, that is another brilliant game. It might even be my favourite game of all time. But again, although the sprites are big and it's a very colourful game, it's still a bit 8-bit in its looks department. I mean, if you go and look at the Commodore 64 version, it looks very similar to the Atari ST version. There's not a lot about it that makes you think, blimey, that's a 16-bit game right there. Welcome to the new generation. You could say that, the sampled sound effects and stuff do, but still, it's another game that when it came out was a little criticised for its very basic look, but it's absolutely brilliant. It's just a perfect game. I could play it and play it and play it, and I do. It's a game I always go back to. Absolutely fantastic. And here's another one. Another game, one of the best games on the Atari ST, but again, quite graphically simple. Now, Jeff Minter will be first in line to tell you that he's not much of an artist when it comes to sprite design. And I think it's quite evident throughout most of his games. And in fact, in terms of sprite design, Larmatron is probably one of his best, to be fair. But a bit of a diversion, a bit off topic here, but if we're talking about light synthesizers and vector graphics, the man knows how to make something look gorgeous. Stop watching this video and go and look at the latest footage for TXK, his latest game for the PlayStation Vita, because oh my word, that is gorgeous. Sex for your eyes right there. I can't wait for that. Absolutely can't wait. I've never wanted to own a PlayStation Portable of any variety, but I'm going to get one just for that game because it's amazing. It looks amazing. Again, so back to Larmatron. Again, it's very graphically basic. Even though there's a lot going on the screen, it still looks a little bit 8-bit, but it's just a phenomenal game. I mean, how do you take the perfection of Robotron and then improve upon it? I mean, that tells you all you need to know about Larmatron. It's better than the seminal Robotron. If you don't agree with me, get on it, play it. And you need to play it with 2 joysticks, by the way. When you start the game, you press fire on the second joystick, and then you can move with the first joystick and fire with the right, so it's that authentic Robotron twin stick control system, and just brilliant. You need to play it. There was one other game. Oh yeah, of course, Lode Runner. That's another game. Again, very 8-bit in style when it came out. Got a lot of criticism for the tiny sprites. There's only 1 or 2 colours in those sprites. There's not a lot about that game that makes you think, wow, this is the 16-bit generation. But it's a fantastic game, so tightly programmed. And in fact, it's better than any of the remakes of Lode Runner where they tried to add more colours, bigger sprites, scrolling playfield and all of that. This, for me, is the definitive version. It's pretty much like the 8-bit versions, but it's had a very colourful lick of paint and some sampled sound effects, and absolutely, it's just brilliant. The best version of the game. And if you've never played any version of Lode Runner, then you need to get on it straight away because it's a great, great game. So yeah, there you go. There's my response to the fantastic TRexSpaceStation's video, a link to which will be in the description. asking for graphically basic games that are still utterly brilliant. And those are the ones for me. Absolutely brilliant games. Anyway, if you've got some games that you know of that have got truly terrible graphics, now as I was saying, those games I think look beautiful. They might be minimalistic, they might be a bit 8-bit in style, but they still look beautiful to me. If you know of a game that's got really terrible graphics, but is still an amazing game, I'd like to hear it, because I was racking my brains and I really couldn't come up with one. I don't know. All the games I can think of that have really bad graphics are really bad games. And maybe that's just because if a game's got bad graphics but I really like the game, then I just don't see the bad graphics. You know, somehow they become beautiful. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'd love to hear your opinion on this, so be sure to put your comments in this section and copy and paste it over to TRexSpaceStation's video as well, so we can both see your responses. Fantastic. Alright, I hope you enjoyed listening to that. Take care.